Hi, everybody. I hope y'all are doing well. I hope y'all are having a great day today. If you're new here, I want to welcome you to School of Scarlet, where we talk about the power of unconditional love. And if you're a returning subscriber or returning viewer, thank you so much for tuning back in. Today, we will be talking about play. And so, we've been talking about play off and on in our play series, Life is Nothing But Play. And I've created a playlist in my channel. If you want to go back and click on that, you can see all the videos that are relating to play. And so today we're going to talk about how too much play can actually be a bad thing or a problem for you. And that's all relative and whether or not you see it as a problem, but we're going to be talking about how without having structure to play in, we can actually begin to unravel. And it can become a very painful thing for the person, and it can become a very painful thing for others to experience. So, we're going to be talking a little bit more in line of mental illness and the things that can happen. Now, some of these things, of course, are just happening. It's not that we can really do anything about it. But when we notice or we come across information, let's say like this video or things about creating structures around your play and things like that, anything that is, let's say, self help or any information out there, you go to the doctor and they give you some information on how to reduce stress, stuff like that, are things that are being, kind of deposited into you. There's knowledge that's being deposited into you to begin to use, to begin to implement in your life so that you don't unravel, so that you don't have these issues. So anything that's coming into your reality, whether that's a video, whether that's a doctor, whether that's, somebody at work sharing something with you, anything that's coming into your existence is for you to use or, discern and decide whether or not it resonates with you, whether or not it will work for you, and whether or not you want to apply that into your life. And so today we're going to be talking about creating structures around our play. So one of the things, if you've ever noticed people that have mental illness, let's say they have psychosis or they have something that is getting them to just talk uncontrollably. You may have noticed people like this out in the world, maybe at a bus stop, somewhere out in the community, and they're just talking nonstop, talking just a bunch of things, but none of them make sense. They're all different. So that's one of the signs of mental illness is when it's a very disorganized brain patterns or disorganized speech. So when we see disorganized speech, that's a person that has gone too far into play. And it's not that they were off playing in a sandbox or doing whatever they wanted. They never developed a structure in their life to play in, to speak and release all of these things in that was a safe container for them. So we're going to be talking about how to create that because we talked about how play really only occurs in safety. And when we're playing out of safety and out of structure, it can become very dangerous. We can say things that can hurt others. You can imagine a person that is too far into play, too far into that realm with no structure. Let's say they get angry. They could go too far into anger. They could throw things, they could break windows, they could hurt someone. So we want to develop some level of structure, and structure it naturally develops throughout our life. We develop structure through, what our parents teach us, how to keep our room clean, the rules, the house rules maybe that we had in the home. The structure that was maintained in the home generally begins to build that foundation for you to have some level of structure. So at home, you generally learn when it's time to work and when it's time to play, even before you've been out there working in the workforce. So that you may have chores, you may be taught that on certain days you have certain chores and responsibilities to do. And then you may be taught that on other certain days are free days and free days to do whatever you want. So you have a little bit of a structure in your play. So while you are allowed to play, you can play, you still are able to get done a lot of things that, are not so much in that playful realm, like things we don't really enjoy too much, but have to be done, like washing our dishes, washing our clothes, cleaning our home. Those things may not be that fun to the majority of us, really, but we have to do them. And if we're too far into play and we haven't built structures around our life to play in, then we're going to have chaos in our life. We're going to have a dirty home. We're going to have chaos within the members of our family. There's going to be a lot of chaos happening. So those structures are built early on. So we can talk about that there. The next place you can build some structure would be at school. So at school, you have school rules. Your teacher and classrooms each have their own rules within the classroom. So you begin to learn that there's structure there. There's time to learn and time to play. There's time that we sit and learn, and maybe there's time in that classroom where y'all play, and there's also time where maybe you have recess outside or whatever, or there's after school times that y'all do things. So again, it builds the structure within the person of recognizing that there is a time for work and there is a time for play. And it builds a balance in order for both to occur. If we only have play, then no work is going to get done. Or if we only have work and no play, we talked about in other videos, the heart kind of begins to harden and it begins to kind of not really enjoy or have a lot of joy in life. So there's consequences with this imbalance on either side. So we want to make sure that while we're playing, we also have structure. And like I said, this is something that's naturally occurring. But at times, for whatever reason, whether that's stress, conditioning, something that's happened within that person, there can be this resistance to structure or this resistance to play. You could be in resistance to either side. And when you're in that resistance to either side, you have that imbalance as well. So that person that is resisting play, like we talked about, is probably very much in their head, is very, stiff, very cold, very, calculated and things like that. You can think of it more like the masculine energy. And or the person that is too far into play or only prefers play is very aloof, very flowing. You can never really predict what's going to happen. Can be very playful, yes, but at times can't get that one person to be serious. So have you ever had a person in your life that always jokes around and can never really get serious about things, and you want them to be serious about something? Like maybe you're trying to have a very serious conversation with them, but they don't get serious. You're telling them something serious. You're telling them, look at me in my eyes, I really am telling you something, and they're still cracking jokes. That's very unsafe and doesn't make the other person feel good either. So there's that imbalance there. We can't be too far into play. Or let's say it's a mother that's too far into play, and it's okay to play with your kids and have fun and all that. But imagine, a husband that comes home to a woman that's too far into play. She hasn't cleaned at all. The kids they haven't been changed. Their clothes hasn't been changed. They haven't been washed. Dinner hasn't been made. She just has the music on and they're just dancing. While it's fun, at the same time, there's issues there because basic needs aren't being taken care of the children, the home. Basic things that need to be taken care of are completely being neglected. So that's imbalance. That's not unconditional love there. That's something else is happening there. You're going to feel balance and peace in all areas of your life when you're in unconditional love. When you're in that frequency, all areas of your life are in peace. If you have imbalance in one area of your life, let's say that's your marriage or family, like let's say that mother, you're going to notice that it's going to be sprinkled throughout your other parts of your life as well. Maybe not as strongly as with the marriage itself, but it's going to be throughout. So that's just a sign to you that something is out of balance with unconditional love. That might be kind of hard for you to understand because I'm using like my own terminology that I work with, but unconditional love is a state of peace. It's that unsurpassing peace that's talked about. It's where you feel safe to be yourself, your authentic self, that others feel safe to be themselves. You're in a state of unity. You're in a state of oneness. And even greater than that, you realize the illusion of it all. So that state of being is a very non-threatening state, but it also recognizes both sides and why both sides are needed, why the structure is needed, and why the flow is needed. It doesn't deny any side or resist any side. If it was resisting structure, then we'd have problem. If it was resisting play, we'd have problem. So we're not resisting anything. And that's very similar to what we talk about with non-duality, which is just seeing that everything is it is and it isn't. So it is happening and it's not happening. Okay. And it's very similar in the sense to that, because it is and it isn't in everything. For example, um, we don't really see these distinctions of good and bad or good and evil. And you can go back and watch some videos on that. That all dissolves. It just disintegrates. You can't see it. And it's not that it dissolves, because it never really disappears. Everything just clears up. That's what actually happens. So that's what happens. Everything clears up. Then you see, oh, yeah, nothing was really bad. We actually need these two things, the good, the bad. Whether you want to see the structure as bad and the flow is good, we need both. And so to me, this is kind of going off a little course here, but a little bit off course. But to me, non duality, or that state of being, when I had that shift, because I was very much in the structure realm. Prior to my shift, I was working 9 to 5 job every day, had a very predictable life, very predictable routine, very much could be emotionless if I wanted to. That kind of life. That's how I was living. So you would put it more on the side of structure. After my shift, everything fell away, and I went automatically into play. But I was there. And if you go back and watch some of my older videos, you'll notice it's a space of just being. Like, you're not really in the realm of having goals, of making to-do lists, of keeping structure, of keeping routines. You're kind of just going with the flow. If any of you have had a non-dual shift or glimpse, comment down below and share with us your experience, because what I noticed is after the shift, it really, you go into this really state of play, I would say, or the feminine completely. It just feels that way completely to me. It was a very stark difference from what I was. So it shifted to this. But in that, I also made a video about this gap year. In that, it didn't seem that a whole lot was getting done. It didn't seem that I was able to reach any goals, really progress with anything. Relationships were pretty much staying, the same or falling away, that sort of thing. And so it wasn't until I started actually doing stuff and getting back into my structure that life started really becoming a lot more alive. It was pretty alive in my being, but it was a different type of aliveness. It was more simple. I could go outside and sit on my porch and really have experiences straight with nature that were very beautiful. So there's nothing wrong with that, other than it could become a problem because you're not going to make an income. You're not going to be able to support yourself. You may be letting things go. You may be late to things. You're not as serious and structured as you should be to function really in this world. That does require some level of structure. So we want to kind of always be in balance with everything, like I said, because if we're in balance with this, we're generally in balance with everything. That's just how it is. So that's what happens when you have a non-dual shift, and there's nothing wrong about it. It seems like it happens. And for me, it lasted maybe 9 months or a year before I started to move really back into a little bit more structure. And I never really went back all the way to how I was. That never occurred. But I moved more towards structure to where I'm now in balance, to where now time and structure and all this stuff, it just has really kind of expanded for me, where I have a lot of time. My time is pretty much broken up in ways that I feel like I'm doing what would take 3 days in one day, or 6 days in one day, because my time has been managed and structured in a way that that's just how it happens now. And it's still in line with the flow. So it's still fun. It's still airy. It still feels good. It still keeps me in this good, energy. And so I'm able to work more effectively and do more things and have more fun and get less tired. So that's what happens when you start to really merge the two and kind of function in the middle. So we want to create structures around play so that we have time to play. So we have safety, a place that's safe to play in. And so all of these things are important. Like I said, if we're not safe, if we're playing all the time, then we're actually not safe. We may be playing all the time, but that playing all the time is actually making us unsafe. Meaning people can come take advantage of you. People can, do different things when they see someone that's too far into play. That's when predators and people that, gravitate towards those type of people go. So you want to maintain some structure as well. Those are your boundaries with play. So while you're playing, it's not open play like anything goes. We still keep boundaries and we still respect our authentic selves. So if somebody's trying to cross our boundary within play or whatever happens, we still keep to our boundary. That's part of loving ourselves. That's part of unconditional love. So we have to build our own sort of rules around play that keep us safe and keep others safe as well. And we want to be careful that we don't just unravel into nothing. So what ends up happening is, like I said, if a person is too far into play, their house will become way out of control, and it'll start slowly that they won't clean or do things because they're playing. And before you know it, the whole thing's out of control, and it could become so far gone that they could be in a situation where they need professionals to come help clean. So something like that could unravel a person within months. um, you know Same thing with someone that's too far into play that decides to quit their job when they actually need their job. If they actually need their job to pay their bills and they quit their job, it's going to be a matter of months before they're not able to pay their bills. And then what's going to happen? They're going to be on the street and they've unraveled. So you can see how too much play can lead you down the wrong routes. And I can keep going with examples, but those are some very basic examples that we've all seen. And so that's where we have to keep that balance. So, how can we do that? One space is our home, our family home. So, if we're married, that's creating a container, a space for us to play in. We want to create routines for ourselves. Okay. Whether you're married or not, or have a family home where you have routines, create yourself a routine. If you're in a family home, create family routines where you have times that you work and times that you play. And when you play, you really play. And so you have this balance always, and you're making sure that everything's always covered, everything's always taken care of. As far as your work should be something sacred, something special to you, and there should also be work and life balance. So while you really love your work, you may want to do that all the time because that feels like play. You also have to maintain the balance with work. There has to be some time for play or family or work. And maybe, outside of your work, a job. So maybe you have chores to do. So we can't get too far into our work either. We have to really balance ourselves. And that's that whole yin and yang thing. And so with the yin and the yang, the everything and nothing, it's got one side that's black, one side that's white. We can also look at that as feminine and masculine. So I'm always kind of bringing that in, and I'm not talking about male or female. We both have the energies of feminine and masculine. And sometimes we're more feminine and sometimes we're more masculine. If we're a female, woman, most of the times, most females, generally 80% of the time, are being feminine. Okay, they're using their feminine energy. And same for men, about 80%. And then some other times they switch, 40% or so, the other energy. It just depends. So those are energies that we both contain, but we have to have both, and they have to be balanced, and they also get balanced according to the people that we're with. So if we're with a very masculine husband, then we're a little bit more feminine than a woman that's with a more feminine husband. If she's with a more feminine husband, she needs the more masculine energy in order to be able to create the balance and structure in that home. So it's a little bit more complicated than just 50-50 masculine and feminine energy within ourselves. It's also taking into account all the energies around us. That's how we're always in connection to everything. And if you're not seeing oneness yet, or you're not seeing unity throughout everything in life, you can start to see it within things like this, like just talking about how energies and things work, how all of that happens, just anything medical related. It begins to really show you how we're in connection to our environment and all these things at all time. They're affecting our health. They're affecting our mental health, our physical health, everything about us, our emotional health. So we're always in connection with everything, and everything has kind of like a say or a play in what's happening with us. So actually, what's happening is just a bunch of happenings. That's all that's happening. It's just a bunch of happenings, and it's just happening. That's it. Okay, but we begin to see patterns. We have a brain. We begin to see patterns and kind of notice how things work, how there's structure and flow, how there's this or that. And so we begin to understand something a little bit better. And when we understand something a little bit better, it's easy. Where when we don't understand something, it's very hard. So this is just a matter of understanding when to be in play, when to be in your flow, and when to be in your structure and or, your masculine type of energy. So when I'm making these videos, when I'm talking to y'all, this is masculine energy. If I'm just talking freely, let's say I'm not talking about the topic about play being a bad thing if we have too much play. If I wasn't talking about that, let's say I was just doing a live stream and just kind of talking intuitively about whatever was coming through me. That would be completely a little bit more feminine energy. Not completely, because we're still on camera and I'm still sitting at a certain time, but generally it would be more feminine because it's just flowing completely. Whereas where I have a subject to my video, that's a more structured, more masculine energy. So structure is good. If we want to learn something specifically or we want to go find information about something, we need that structure of finding it, labeling it, where is it, teaching that. Whereas the feminine is just whatever's happening, that's what's happening. And both sides are valid, both sides are beautiful, but there has to be the balance. So the balance is what really makes the magic, right? When you have a male and female really in love, what happens? Magic. When you have, the right balance of anything, what happens? Peace, harmony, beauty. So we want to stay in balance with our play and our structure. So what structures have you built around your play? These are maybe journal prompts. I'm going to give you a few journal prompts for you to write in your journal. So we talked about journaling before, and I do have a journal called the School of Scarlet Journal. I will link the link to the book below. You can purchase that on Amazon now, and I have my other book there. As I have my journal, and then I have my Awakening Story book in there, so you can go in there and see. But you don't need those journals in order to do these journal prompts. You would just need a white piece of or a blank piece of paper, and you would just write. Okay, where do you have structure around play in your life now? Okay. Where did you learn structure? We talked about you could have learned it at home, you could have learned it, at school, wherever. You could have created it yourself. You could have watched YouTube videos and created yourself a routine, or you could have found many different ways. How did you learn structure? And this is a good place if you read back what you wrote, and if you learn structure from your family home or something like that, re-examine it. Does that structure still work for you today? I had friends growing up that their families were very structured. And I mean, like, it was a weekend or it was a day that was off for everybody, or even a holiday, and they were woken up like 5 in the morning and they had to work. There was no play, none of that. So if you grew up in a very structured home, or on the other side, a very free home, like, I've heard of unschooling, you just kind of let your kids just run free. If you grew up on either side of the extreme, you may want to look at revisiting that. How can you modify your structure to be more balanced? Okay. And so that would be the last question. How can you create good structure for your flow? And there's a lot of components to this. Over time, you will start to notice that even to be in play or to be in that energy, your home has to be a certain way. It has to be clean. It has to be airy, flowy. And that's like, maybe you've heard of feng shui, the way that there's a flow throughout the house. It's true. When things are cluttered or you have a lot of mess everywhere, it's like you don't feel very good. you don't feel like being very playful. You just kind of have this kind of irritable thing going on about yourself. At least that happens to me. But when it's clean and nice and open, you feel airy, good. You turn on the music, you can clean, you can, cook and things with a little more space, and you feel better. And so it just feels so much better when we're in a good structure that has been created, where it's clean, where it's, safe. Most churches, synagogues, any religious temples, they're very clean, open, airy. You can walk, there's a flow through them. So we want to always keep in mind we have to have a good structure to have a good flow. So even like a river bend, it keeps the water in a certain flow. If there was nothing, the water just seeps into the ground everywhere. So there needs to be some sort of containment for that to be a healthy, good thing for you. So these are just things for you to ponder. You can journal about them in your journal and see what comes up for you. See if you need to create more of a structure for yourself in order to create more balance, or if you have to create more play. Maybe you are all structure and not very much play. Maybe you need to infuse a little play. And so this is life. You can make it whatever you want. So choose what you want, make your life how you want it. Structure and play, they just go together, and I wanted to share that with y'all so that y'all can play in this very high vibration way, this very safe way. That's not going to unravel you. That's not going to hurt you. That's not going to make you look silly or get people mad at you because you never get serious. You want to have that balance. So I love y'all. I hope that y'all find this balance in play, and that you really enjoy your play, and that you really enjoy your structure. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you're new here again, think about subscribing to my channel. I would really love to have you. If you have anything that you want to share with us about your structure and play or anything like that in the comment section, let's get some comments going down below, and we can start some discussion around that. Thanks so much for watching.